me ask you, back in the early 90s, what was more controversial? The blood, violence, and female murder by way of an overly complicated vampire power drill you could get on Sega Genesis and CD? Or this bazooka-looking SuperScope that you could get on the Super Nintendo? I bet it caused more of a stir if more people knew about Nintendo's mascot wielding it in a Yoshi game. Yoshi's Safari for the Super Nintendo. Like I said, it's the early 90s and Nintendo introduced their successor to their entertainment system with the Super NES, a new powerful console that had plenty going for it, but it also had newfound competition in Sega's Genesis, which did just about what Nintendo's Super System could, and they both fought tooth and nail in the time that would become the infamous 16-bit console war. While Nintendo had their diehards, Sega were the cool kids on the block, and the Big N wanted to get an edge over their rival, and one of their tactics was this big toy bazooka known as the SuperScope. Released in 1992 as the successor to the Zapper, it was supposed to launch a new era in light gun gaming, but that didn't really happen as sales were stuttering and relevance was fading heading into 1993, and Nintendo turned to Research and Development 1 to come up with a killer app for the peripheral. And what they came up with was Yoshi's Safari. This game was released on September 17, 1993, to a mixed to positive reception from critics. Now, show of hands, who's actually heard of this game before? Given that I can see none, I'm gonna assume that answers my question. It probably isn't without good reason, though, as it is a SuperScope game and that's obscure in itself, and as I hinted at in the intro, Mario's the one with the gun. And you thought Shadow couldn't pull that off. So yeah, Nintendo obviously doesn't talk about it, but is that the only reason why? It could just be bad, but really, it's a Yoshi game, how could it be? We'll find out once we take a better look at Yoshi's Safari. Before we head straight into the game, here's a little reminder of things you have to do beforehand. Again, you're playing with the SuperScope that takes 6 AA batteries, which will last you the whole game. You'll need its sensor bar to connect into the second player slot on the system, and the on and off switch is up here along with the fire button. This is worth the reminder because it's just so fucking odd. Why would they design it like that? The story is as straightforward as you usually get in a Mario or Yoshi game. Princess Peach tells us of a nearby place called Jewelry Land, and we have to go in and take it over for the good of all in the Mushroom Kingdom. Just kidding, we're asked to rescue the prince and king and recollect 12 jewels as well while we're at it, so we go at once wondering who could be behind this takeover. Wart! I'm putting my money on Wart. Once you adjust your aim so the sensor bar can follow you adequately, you can pick a mode and take a look at the map. Not sure if you can start wherever you like or not, but we'll just go in order for now and begin on stage 1. Now this is where the fun starts. We can only hope. As Mario on Yoshi, he takes you on a path filled with enemies you need to shoot, like Goombas and Bullet Bills, among others. You have to shoot them, otherwise they hit Yoshi, and life will be taken away. And it appears you shoot them with blue balls. Guess Mario was holding it in for too long. Might as well share his pain with his foes. When you get far enough, you'll fight an end boss, which so happens to be a Koopaling. This is why I don't gamble, unless I'm on a riverboat. You just have to find its weak point, which is usually the Koopaling itself or another obvious place, and when you defeat it, you'll get bonus points based on a couple things and one of the 12 jewels, and continue to the next stage. That is basically how you play throughout the whole damn game. Not much of the gameplay changes after that, so if you want to skip ahead, the option is there. But if you want to learn a few tips, then hop back on Yoshi and I'll teach you a few tricks. One of the primary things that do change is the surroundings as you go along. You'll find yourself in various and familiar settings in Mario's world like desert, beach, even the sea, and enemies will rotate around so you'll never know which ones you'll run into until they're in view. But just keep shooting at whatever you see, including some flying question blocks that contain items like mushrooms for your health, flowers that increase your power meter, which I'll talk about later, and a star for temporary invincibility. I don't use the sight because this game is so easy that you can just fire without it. This is how you can measure how sad your life is because you're listening to my tips on a baby game for babies. Nintendo's core fan audience. In some levels, you may see these pillars with eyes. That's actually a door you can shoot that'll take you down a different path, which may be easier or more challenging to go down, but either way takes you to the same place. In most levels, you'll run into markers that'll either give you a boost of speed or prompt you to jump, which you have to do by hitting the cursor button. Failure to do the latter can either result in a loss of coins or a big loss of energy, but you can regain coins by shooting enemies and by random chance they'll drop one. If you can make it up to 50, you'll earn an extra life. Well, there's another good reason why they don't talk about this game. 50 instead of 100? What is Nintendo playing at? Forgot to mention there is a time limit. It didn't become a real worry for me until reaching stage 6. The level itself wasn't out of the ordinary, but the boss fight had me a little confused as I didn't know what to hit at first, and when I did, the hitbox seemed a bit off. So I had a tougher time taking out this metallic squid, and the timer was ticking down. I can only imagine that when the timer ends, that's a loss of a life, but I didn't have to find out as I defeated that guy in the nick of time. Whoa, Mario. Whoa, that's animal abuse. Why are you doing this, Mario? Now come on, Nintendo has enough trouble with PETA as it is. When all stages on this map are cleared, you'll have saved the king, but the day is not done yet, as the prince and 5 other gems are still unaccounted for, so off we go to another part of Jewelry Land where more of the same happens. You might see a few new foes, but nothing that you can't handle, at least if you know what you're doing. On the first stage I tried, I reached this Lakitu and I found it harder than anything I faced yet, which kinda took me by surprise. I'll admit my aim wasn't perfect, but it seemed this guy was taking so many hits and throwing so much shit at me that I was baffled and left pretty much dead. And after a botched jump later, I lost my first life. This was a quick change in difficulty that I wasn't expecting. Is there something I'm missing? Well, I didn't have turbo on, maybe that'll change things. Oh shit, this is for the tiniest of children. Having the turbo on makes this game easier than it already is, and makes that power meter make more sense as you don't want to overuse it and risk leaving yourself open for attack. Still, I'm kind of impressed I made it this far even with my arm getting tired, and disappointed that I still don't know how to read directions. Manuals might as well be blank cause nobody reads them. Just put them in the game, they thought. Yet we still don't pay attention. Boss defeated, and I just realized that I went out of order and skipped a level, so you can do that. So let's get back on track with stage 8. Oh god, why can't I hit that damn level? Guess I have to get on a different angle. Take it from me, dealing with retro is not for the faint of heart. There we go, finally. Now there isn't much else I can say that I've already gone over. The levels may get a little tougher in some aspects, but having the turbo on helps with that, and so does the helpful power-ups coming in at the right times. Personally, I didn't have any more challenges until the final stage, where you pretty much fight everything and everyone who have fought previously, not counting the Koopalings, just your regular enemies and mini-bosses, all before reaching the final boss and the big bad Koopa King, Bowser. He had a few phases like he usually does, and they were pretty simple all things considered. But I got pissed off because it looked like my SuperScope was wigging out at times and it caused me to lose a few lives. I thought his stomp attack was causing it to go off center, but I don't think that was the case, so I just had to persevere, and I eventually beat him.
Christ. Now, hey, just because I'm calling it a baby game doesn't mean it's going to be easy the first time around. You're not going to know the patterns unless you look up a playthrough, and you have Unreliable here screwing it up for you.
After that's all said and done, we rescue the prince, and with the power of the gems, we restore this land of its people and freedom.
Sounds like we harness the power of chaos control. I have the emeralds here on standby.
We go back home as heroes once more, and sorry to say, King, but we're never coming back. Then the game abruptly ends.
Okay, I guess nobody in R&D 1 wants credit for this shit.
Well, that's Yoshi's Safari, and it wasn't much of a safari, was it? More like an on-rails ride on an open field pillaging all of Bowser's underlings. I did like it for what it's worth. Looks nice with Mode 7 graphics, remember those? And the gameplay was decent, albeit easy with Turbo. It went by pretty fast too, with 12 levels that range from straightforward to slightly difficult, and having the occasional technical hiccup, and all the whole game clocked in around an hour or more, but you could probably do it in less time if you played it more. It was an interesting experience to say the least, one that has taught me some valuable things, like how to properly aim so you don't hit Yoshi in the back of the head.
Oh, fuck. Oh god, no one saw that, right? Oh man. If they did, I could go to jail for an abuse on an extinct animal. Fair enough.
The music was composed by these three, supposedly. Wish some of these games had credits. But anyway, you can tell it's Super Nintendo tunes. The system had a specific sound, and Nintendo especially used the same type of sound that you could identify without fail, and Yoshi Safari is no exception. As far as the tracks themselves are concerned, they're fine and get the job done, but they're not going to be what your focus is on when you play.
Your eyes may or may not be looking through this hole, your mouth hole will be open, and your asshole will be clenched. So your ear holes aren't going to pay much attention to anything. Other than there being a two-player mode which would allow another player to control Yoshi's movements, that's the only extra content there is. Alright. You win this round.
I didn't find how well Yoshi's Safari sold, but let's assume it didn't do well since nobody talks about it or the SuperScope much, and considering more eyes were on the Mortal Kombat port around this time, this game didn't stand a chance. Instead of being a killer app for the SuperScope, it pretty much killed any momentum it had left, leaving behind a legacy of a dozen or so compatible games, and not much else other than some cameo appearances in future Nintendo games and projects, as well as becoming a talking point in that congressional hearing on violent video games in 1993. For some reason, Yoshi would finally get his time to shine after a few mediocre starts when he starred in Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, and he's been doing pretty well for himself ever since. Safari is often a forgotten title in the Yoshi and Mario series, never being re-released on another system, though it may have influenced other games to come in one way or another.
So, What is my rate to play? This game ticks a lot of boxes. It's a Nintendo game in the Mario or Yoshi series that nobody talks about, an odd peripheral game, and a genre you would not associate with either character. This game was just made to be covered by someone like me, and I hope you guys got some enjoyment out of it like I did.
This is just one of those games that remind me why I like being a game collector, historian, and reviewer. Finding odd games like this fuel me, and when it's one off of a company like the Big N, that's even better. Yoshi's Safari was an attempt to get the SuperScope over, and it unfortunately didn't work out. Though it had good graphics and decent gameplay, the small playtime and the industry being embroiled in the controversy it was in at the time took eyes away from what could be the SuperScope's magnum opus. Whether you do or don't have a SuperScope, this is one of those games that you should get just for its oddball place in gaming history. It's just funny to see Mario with a bazooka way back then. It's more common to see today, but man, I would have loved to see Sega poke fun of this before they did the same with Shadow.
To conclude, I give this game a play rate of... should play.
But that's only my opinion. If you have your own thoughts, leave a comment. If you like what you see, leave a like. If you think others would enjoy this, share it around the web. And if you want to see more, subscribe. Anyway, this has been BrianTheBlue Game Reviews, Yoshi's Safari for the SNES. Brian here, want to quickly say thanks for watching this game review, as this and other content wouldn't be possible without you. I appreciate anyone and everyone who watches my videos from all across the world, but it alarms me that over 80% of viewers aren't subscribed to the channel. So I'd like to reiterate and ask you to subscribe as well as ringing the bell to stay notified. That way you can stay up to date with future content that'll appear on the Jacobians channel. Presently I put out new quick views and current calamities every month, and my brother Alex has a brand new show all about wrestling games called WrestleBound. You might want to stick around as we're only getting started. You can also find me on a couple of other channels. I run the Starfighters Arcade channel, where we take a look at the history of our machines on the floor as well as show you our new arrivals, and on Millennial X, where me, arcade buddies, and family get into shenanigans playing, hunting, and reviewing games. If you want to explore more content, these would be the first places to go. That's all the time I got, but be sure to click the icon now if you want to watch the previous or upcoming episodes of Game Reviews.